We all know the god of speed, Savitar, but have you heard of Godspeed? A man who they compare to the reverse Flash, a man who started a Speedster Civil War. So let's talk about it. We start off seeing a white Flash, and then we see two Godspeeds, and they're speaking to each other, but they aren't speaking English. Here's what it sounds like. We check on Barry, and he's checking on Iris's pregnancy test, but then we hear rumbling, and the windows shatter. But lucky for Cecile, Barry protected her. Barry pulls up on his team, and he finds out Godspeed is on the run, and just in case this is important later, Godspeed is an artificial speedster, and his motive is that he wants organic speed. The team is checking the radar, and the Godspeeds disappear. We check on Caitlin, and she's about to perform surgery, but then the alarm goes off. Flash pulls up on Chester to get the MO, and it's Godspeed back on the loose. Flash hits the dash, pulling up on Godspeed, and Flash starts calling this man a fraud, saying he's not nothing but an off-brand shadow clone, to which Godspeed responds, but Chester has a translator, and we find out what the Godspeed said. I have him. And then Flash realizes this was a trap, and now he's surrounded by 6 Godspeeds, and with his back against the wall, there's only 2 options, fight or flight.
I'm out. He's a pussy.
And Barry starts booking it, telling Chester to drop the force field, and after some hesitation, Chester does it, and Flash slides in real smooth like at the last second, just barely making it through, as the Godspeeds watch from outside the club. But I have a question. What if Chester didn't hesitate, and Barry didn't make it inside? What was his game plan? Die? The Godspeeds try to phase through, but no dice. Break the walls down! And basically what the Godspeeds said was to break the walls down like Chris Jericho, and the force field health is depleting. Flash pulls up on Chester, and he's asking if there's a way out, but that's not an option, because Caitlin is still doing surgery. We check on the Godspeeds, and hold on, I know y'all can move faster than that. These boys aren't trying to get in for real. Back to Barry and Chester. Chester came up with a plan, and bro, it was so stupid. Do you want to know what the plan was? Be unpredictable. And Barry's looking at Chester like he just solved cancer. We check on Caitlin, and she's still locked in, and the baddie's freaking out, but Caitlin is not gonna let that ruin her focus. We check on Killer Frost, and she frees this guy, and asks for his help defeating the Godspeeds. Back to Barry and Chester. Chester elaborates on his plan, which is to use the Godspeed voices against them. Now that's what you call a game plan, but it's gonna take 4 minutes to complete, and sadly, I don't think they have 4 minutes, because the Godspeeds start using the sonic wave attack, and it shuts the barrier down, and the Godspeeds couldn't wait to get in there. One Godspeed pulls up on the Flash, talking about some, "You're gonna die!" And after hearing that, Flash tells Chester to hit the dash, and you don't gotta tell him twice. He books it into Thawne's room. Back to the Flash. These boys are boxing, going hit for hit, run on the walls, hold this kick, and then hits Barry, sending him flying, and peep the form. That follow through is immaculate, and before Flash can even hit the ground, Godspeed pulls up punching mans, but Barry's tired of being a punching bag. He runs in a circle throwing lightning, and then Barry runs on the walls just to get his get back from earlier. We check on Killer Frost, and 2 Godspeeds pull up, and her and mans were probably gonna die, but Chester came in clutch and starts playing the audio through Star Labs, and it's working to perfection, leaving Godspeed wide open for Flash to start piecing mans up, and then Flash cocks that fist all the way back and punches Godspeed in the chest, moving him a solid 2 feet. Godspeed loads up a haymaker, but Flash hits a football slide, blocks the punch, grabs the arm, putting his filthy hands on the drip, spins Godspeed around just to sock him. But just like a sock, Godspeed has that comeback in him. Godspeed punches Flash, turning mans into a bird as he crashes to the floor. We check on Killer Frost, and these boys are piecing the Godspeeds up, even hitting a tag team combo. But wasn't there 6? One's with the Flash, and 2 are here. Where's the other 3? Back to the Flash. He gets up and throws lightning at Godspeed, but then we see this Godspeed walking, and he breaks into Thawne's room, somehow sending Chester flying. And this Godspeed must be the smart one, because he stops the audio, and with no more distractions, we see Chester about to get clapped. Killer Frost and bro got hit with lightning, and the final 2 Godspeeds pull up on Flash, and now once again, Barry has 2 choices, fight or flight. And he takes out all 3 Godspeeds. Bro, those last 2 Godspeeds are frauds. They gotta just be normal people. But then this Godspeed says, "Chase the Flash!" And all the Godspeeds pull up, following Flash, moving all across the city. And then they run past Flash and hit him with a combined lightning attack. And once again, they have Flash surrounded, and they start stealing his speed. Flash is in agony, but then he looks up and sees 6 more Godspeeds. And they attack the other Godspeeds, saving the Flash in the process. And they start brawling. This Godspeed was trying to ore farm, but got pushed out the way. And then bro throws lightning, getting himself a 2-piece. And Flash is watching in disbelief as the brawl comes to an end, as these 2 Godspeeds clash fists, causing all the Godspeeds to disappear. Back to Caitlin. The surgery was a success. Barry goes home and turns on the news, and the Godspeeds are back, terrorizing the city. But then Nora pulls up, begging for help, but Barry is choking, so he can't respond. And then Nora disappears, and we find out that was all a dream, except for the Godspeed part. They're actually back. Flash pulls up to Star Labs, and apparently he just finished getting jumped, but was saved by the Godspeeds disappearing. Caitlin patches Barry up, and this man currently has 6 broken ribs and is internally bleeding. Bro, CW could have gave us the ultimate jumping. Barry tells Caitlin about his Nora dream, and Caitlin is just nodding her head, adding nothing of value. If only there was someone that became someone else. If only there was someone who became something else.
Maybe I can help with that.
Diggle pulls up. Bro, this is like a breath of fresh air, although he is practically useless against speedsters. But having him here boosted morale, and Diggle has a present for them, and his 2 Maska tools. And then Chester pulls up glazing.
The heart and Solar Team Arrow.
Bro, is this what I sound like? But back to the doohickey, it's basically a freeze attack with the response time of a picosecond. So now the goal is capture a Godspeed and bring him back for interrogation. We check on Caitlyn and she officially saved the baddie and leaves the room so the sisters can catch up. But the baddie starts packing and shows her sister this document, and apparently she plans on going on a revenge tour and asks her sister to join her. But the baddie says that's stupid. There's a whole Godspeed Civil War. Once we handle this, then we'll spin the block. But the baddie doesn't agree and decides to go on this journey alone. We see the Flash zooming across the city and he tells Chester, play that heat. And like a moth to a flame, one of the Godspeeds take the bait and he's on Flash's tail. Wait, bro, hold up. How are you wearing a mask? But I can perfectly see how angry you are. Flash keeps running and then we see the trap laid out and Flash faces through the ground, leaving the Godspeed dumbfounded and caught in the trap. They bring him back to base and he hasn't said a word. Cecile tries using her powers that she doesn't deserve on him, but all she can feel is hatred and determination. And the Godspeed was trying to call for help, but the baddie is sending interference. But now we go to the Flash and he's trying to talk to the Godspeed, but he came to the conclusion the Godspeeds must not speak his language. So Flash goes to get a translator.
A translation will not be necessary.
Bro, they could have spoke the whole time, and the Godspeed even knows Barry's identity. And with the cat out the bag, Barry takes off the drip and asks Godspeed, why talk now? You had Joshua doing those stupid impressions for no reason. And basically, Godspeed answered the question through parables and tries to recruit Barry to help them achieve their goal.
To live.
And then Godspeed drops a cold one-liner.
We did not ask to be born, but we do ask not to die.
Fire the paper with that line. And just for your information, this Godspeed is part of the crew that saved Barry. And what his side wants is to live, while the others want to serve August Hart. And Flash asks him, if you guys are from the future, why bring the war here? And that's because that's where the prime August Hart is. And every Godspeed is searching for him. And once again, Godspeed asks Flash to join him. But Flash asks Godspeed, what happens when we find August Hart? We're gonna kill him. And y'all know Barry, he doesn't kill. So he rejects the offer and walks away. And then the monitor starts going crazy and Godspeed breaks free, smashing the trap device. Barry tries swinging, but gets blocked and chokeslammed.
If you are not an ally, you are an enemy.
That's a bar. And starts hitting Flash with a sonic wave. But then the baddie pulls up, shooting Godspeed. And after one hit, he hit the dash. And then the team groups up and find out how Godspeed escaped. And that's because he's not a meta. He's an artificial speedster. And the whole time they thought they were interrogating him, he was interrogating them. Barry and Diggle have a one-on-one chat. And Diggle inspires Barry to go to the future. Barry goes to let Cecile know. And Cecile shows Barry Nora's notebook that Iris gave to her for some reason. And they find information on August Hart. So here's the plan. Barry goes to the future and Cecile and Diggle go heart hunting. But on their way out, Diggle starts having migraines. And although Cecile can see the pain that Diggle's in, she had to feel it for herself. And now she's in the same pain. Plays stupid games, wins stupid prizes. But Diggle recovers and they continue on the mission. We check on Flash and he's preparing to go to 2049 to make sure his family is safe. But in his travels, he sees 6 Godspeeds and they fire lightning that Barry could have dodged, but he chose not to, knocking Flash somewhere random. And he sees LTG and LTG tells Flash what's going on. The Godspeeds are feeding off the Speed Force, but Barry ignores all that because he remembered LTG can control time and he asked LTG to take him to 2049, but LTG says,
pretty busy right now.
What are you doing? What?
Keeping me safe.
and then Iris comes out and she's in pain and LTG was the one keeping her stable. And after telling the Flash what's going on, LTG and Iris gotta hit the dash.
Iris, I love you.
Nah, LTG, you're flawed for that. You couldn't let Barry get off one more syllable? Back to Godspeed. He's holding this grown man by his collar. Bro, you may be fast, but I refuse to be done like this. But Diggle comes out, shooting Godspeed with nanites, courtesy of Ray Palmer. And he starts piecing Godspeed up, sending mans to the ground. But then the headaches come back, and Diggle's constantly hearing the word, worlds away, worlds away, worlds away. And unfortunately for Diggle, Godspeed is about to dig Diggle a hole. Do you see what I did there? Dig Diggle a hole? Like he's gonna put him in the grave. Because his name is Diggle, and you gotta like dig a grave. But Killer Frost comes to the rescue. But now let's check on the baddie. We see she's on a mission of her own and she sees something horrific. But before we find out what she saw, we go back to Flash and he gets teleported right behind Caitlyn. And then Barry tells them Iris is in danger. Back to the baddie. She's walking past a whole bunch of corpses and finds her sister barely alive. And with her last few words, she starts blaming her sister. Yeah, okay. And then her body goes out in a flame of fire. I can't lie, that was hard, but it left the baddie in pain. Seeing her sister's life end right in front of her, it's truly insane. But back to Diggle. The team finds August Hart and they bring him to the lab and they plan on doing some science stuff to his brain. But we have some bad news. Diggle is taking his leave. It was good having him for the ride. We see Caitlyn getting ready to inject Hart and he starts tweaking, but he finally remembers his name. And obviously it's August Hart. But that's all he remembers due to his memory loss being so severe. We take a look at Barry and he's moping, but then Nora pulls up telling Barry everything will be okay. And then Bart pulls pulls up, leaving Barry in shock. But let's say what you want about Godspeed, but you gotta respect his one-liners. And look at Nora. She's laid out on the floor, but even she knows that was a bar. And then Godspeed starts emoting, but Bart comes in, phasing through Godspeed, once again, putting him to the floor. But Nora isn't happy, letting Bart know what he did was dangerous. But while they're arguing, Godspeed phases through the floor, heading to the Flash Museum, and he's running on a treadmill, using it to create a breach. Bro, what a kryptonite. Zoom would just punch one open. But nonetheless, Godspeed goes through, being followed by Nora and Bart. Back to the present, Barry's kids meet up with everyone, and then Chester has an idea, which I did not understand, but it's to create something that will stop Godspeed. No one follows Barry or Nora. The Godspeeds are all following Bart, saying kill the adversary. Barry tells Bart to spin back, but Bart says, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. But as he says that, he gets struck by a Godspeed, and now he's surrounded. The Godspeeds lift up their hand, and now Bart is in a fight or flight situation, and he... Nah, bro, you're not serious. Out of fight or flight, you chose deer in headlights. Bro, this is pathetic. But Bart gets saved by the bell. And this man, he has the nerve to try to play it off. We saw you, bro. Bart, I didn't want to do this, but we gotta put you on fraud watch. They head back to base, and Barry asks, why did they only follow Bart? And Bart says, no. There's no way he just said that. Play it back. I don't believe it.
Because he's my Thawne.
Before I say anything, let's let this play out. Bart proceeds to call Godspeed his arch nemesis, and Barry says, when it came down to fight or flight, you turtle shelled. Barry was in the same situation twice, and he did both fight and flight. And then you have the nerve to hit this Italian maple table. Have some class. And I wasn't gonna say this until later, but the reason he compared Godspeed to Thawne is because he killed Jay, Garrick, and oh wait, that's it. Like, yeah, that's sad, but there's levels to this. When Barry asked Thawne why did he kill his mother, you know what Thawne said?
Why did you kill my mother? Because I hate you.
Like, bro, come on. Godspeed isn't even Zoom level, but that would be a better comparison. But back to Barry. Barry asked Gideon about Wally, and he's in a deep meditation, so he won't be participating. But then Iris pulls up, and apparently, she was watching everything. And bro, they really believe this Thawne Godspeed nonsense. But then we get a look at Jay, and he got his speed back. He puts on his drip and gets sent flying, and now he's surrounded by 5 Godspeeds, 6. And he puts Jay in a headlock. We check on Flash, and he's trying to bench Bart, to which Bart looks at Nora for help, but she does not back him up. And we see he ran to Joe's house, and this is where they reveal that Godspeed killed Jay. But let's check on the baddie real quick. Also, he's been slacking, and if you remember what she just seen, then you know why. And then Flash pulls up, and he needs that machine like now. But since it's not ready, Barry charges it himself and hits the dash, and now Barry's in position. And we see Nora leading the Godspeeds. Flash turns on the device, and just like Ring Around the Rosie, they all fall down. But then Nora gets hit, and so does Flash, and Nora is passed out. So Flash jumps in front of her, taking the pain of both Godspeeds. But this guy said make it 3. Matter of fact, make it 4. And once again, Killer Frost comes in clutch, and these boys book it. They get back to base, and the reason the device didn't work is because it needed to be charged by allergy, not Flash. And then Bart pulls up, saying sub me in, coach, but he's still benched along with Nora now, but maybe not for long. The alarm goes off, and the Godspeed sent a message saying turn over Bart or we're gonna send Jay to the stars again. If Godspeed does what I think he's gonna do, then I take back everything I said about Bart. Chester finds Godspeed's location, and Bart books it, heading straight to the smoke. And once he arrives, he sees Jay on the floor, and then another Godspeed pulls up behind Bart and starts shocking him. Barry and Nora pull up, and this one Godspeed has Bart in the air, and Nora somehow convinced all 5 Godspeeds to chase her. Bro, that was terrible IQ. 2 max should have been enough. Barry runs at Godspeed, phasing through a sonic wave attack, and then phases through the Godspeed and catches Bart. Jay gets up, and all I have to say is, this is your Thawne? What a joke. Nora pulls back up, and so does the Godspeeds. And it's not just the 5. More Godspeeds come to play, and they surround Team Flash. And Flash and Jay are with the smoke, but then a door opens, and Cisco freezes the Godspeeds, and they get out of there. Also, Bart is still knocked out. Shocker. And now here's the new plan. Inject Barry into Hart's mind, in hopes of finding a way to end the war. They both suit up and get to action, and Barry officially enters Hart's mind, and the true Godspeed shows himself, and Flash starts questioning him, but Hart is spitting out tomfoolery, to which Barry replies,
Tell me what the hell's going on.
Or what?
oh nah, this man's rage baiting. And then he stands, calling himself the living Godspeed. And then he starts disrespecting Flash's kids.
You're gonna leave them alone, I swear.
Are you threatening me, Flash? Here!
Bro, this man's hilarious. And then he tells us his goal, organic speed. And then he kicks Flash out. The team starts talking about what to do, and Nora says give him the speed. But Barry doesn't agree, because Hart being Thawne and yeah, that nonsense. But the family groups up, and we see Barry caught up the Speed Force, and she gives everyone a boost, giving Iris her speed back and healing Bart. We see the Godspeeds fighting each other, and hold on, y'all thought I wouldn't catch that? These two aren't even fighting for real. They're just trying to fit in. But then Bart pulls up, and the violence comes to an end. And then Team Flash pulls up, and they get to action. Bart throwing ninja stars, getting a 5-piece, Nora using her lasso just to go band for band with Bart, the Speed Force snapping, getting an instant 5-piece, Jay using his helmet. Bro, you are not Captain America. That flick was hard though. And Barry and Iris are back to back. Barry takes out 7, and Iris takes out the last 4. But then everyone starts tweaking, including the Godspeeds, and that's because they're feeding off the Speed Force, so she had to get Ghost. But now Team Flash is surrounded. But then Allergy pulls up, and she has the device, and she cranks it to the max, knocking out all the Godspeeds, but there's still more terrorizing the city, and with no other option, Flash decides to give Hart organic speed. They begin to process, and Hart starts tweaking, and then he hits the dash, but apparently, Flash planned for this, and he chases after Hart. We take a look at Hart, and he calls forth all his clones, and then Flash pulls up, and Godspeed books it. Barry follows, but he's getting blown out, and then he gets speared, and then Hart starts spamming and stealing Flash's speed, but then he gets hit from the back by Wally? No, the reverse Flash. Thawne. Godspeed gets up, saying all that jumping is not gonna help them, and then he reaches his hand to the sky, summoning a sword. Ayo, bro, we can do that? And these boys bring out swords of their own. Bro, what is the meaning of this? Star Wars must have been going crazy at this time, but these boys start sword fighting. Peep the block by Godspeed. That was cold. And then these boys start unloading on Godspeed, but like Godspeed said earlier, that jumping does not work. He gets Thawne out the way and hits a 180 flip. I don't know if all that was necessary, but it was fire. And they start using super speed to only switch locations. But back to level 0, Thawne gets kicked away, and Barry and Godspeed are now in a grab clash, but Hart uses his sonic wave attack, knocking Barry down. He turns around and he gets stabbed by Thawne, and Thawne is looking Godspeed dead in the eyes. I hope Bart was watching that. Barry checks on Hart, and he's still alive, but now it's just Thawne and Barry. Barry tells Thawne to walk away, but you know Thawne is not going for that. He swings on Barry, and Barry is now in Flash time, and he throws Thawne. Hadman's appalled. Thawne, not knowing what just happened, starts questioning Barry.
I created you. I taught you everything you know. Everything you are is because of me. What did you do?
I got faster. Didn't you?
Bro, that's a bar. Thawne had no choice but to hit the dash, and that's how the Flash ended the Godspeed war. But if you guys enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Peace.